What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today I am at the APTA conference, and today is special because I am with the Vice President of Strategic Affairs at the APTA, Drew. Welcome on to the podcast.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Sweet. So today what we're gonna do, we're gonna ask all the questions that everyone in the PT world wants to know. And before this, they were like, nothing's off the limit. So this is super, super exciting. We're gonna talk about some of the things that you guys wanna hear and what the APTA is doing and what they're excited about going forward. So starting with number one, what are you most excited about what the APTA is doing right now?
I think the biggest thing that I'm most excited about is there's a shift in APTA where there's a lot of young professionals that are looking to get engaged. And look, the APTA has been around for over 100 years, so there's a lot of people that have done a lot of work to get us this far. Mm-hmm. But the shift is starting to occur now because you have people getting into PT school, right? It's hard, right? So people that are coming in, like, to be honest, I don't know that I could get in today, right? So it's hard, but the talent level is so high for young clinicians that they're coming in and they're pushing the boundaries, right? They want to get right into practice. They want to own practices. They want to be specialists. They want to push the boundaries of medicine, and that's really exciting for me.
Yes, that's really cool. Awesome. So with that, you said you see a lot of young clinicians coming up. So how do you see like the profession changing in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think that the PT profession is one of the few professions that's actually poised to make a difference in healthcare right now, right? So like healthcare is complicated. You know, like you understand that like people access the healthcare system when they're sick, right? Oh, I don't need to see my doctor unless I'm sick. Well, the population has kind of figured out that like the healthier I am, the better off I am, right? And I think that COVID taught people that like your health matters, right? We saw that. So I think that as people start to shift from this, I only access healthcare when I have a problem to, hey, look, I want to be feeling good when I'm doing things with my children, or like I want to make sure that, you know, I'm moving well so that I'm better at my job or whatever it is. So as people start to see that, the people that will help them do that are physical therapists, right? So because everybody, no matter what you do for a living, you should be able to move, you should be able to pick something up, right? And you should be able to kind of have a good day at it. And I think that the profession is poised to really make an impact in the healthcare system.
Yes, I love that so much. So many people, as far as like patients, they don't understand what we do. So putting the word out there, putting ourselves out there as well and telling them what we do, they don't need to just come to us after injury. We can actually do a lot of pre-injury stuff as well and education around preventing a lot of those things that people deal with.
Right. So, and part of that is, right, like we have to embrace and understand that as a doctoring profession, our job is to be with the public, educating them, making sure they understand that, like, look, health is a journey, right? It's a whole process of your life. Everything from how you sleep to your nutrition to how I move, all those things are interconnected. So, you know, I just really think that people are getting smarter. Information is more available, right? Everybody's got a watch or a ring or a thing that tells them, right? And as people start to consume that, they need doctors to help them understand, well, what does this mean for me? How do I get better at this? And that's what this profession's ready to do.
I love that so much. So like, tell me some efforts that the APTA is doing on the physical therapy behalf on like educating like society on what we do. So many people were like with the PT, personal trainer, DPT, dynamic personal trainer, like what are we doing as far as efforts, as far as like educating the public?
Yeah, so there's a outward facing thing that we do at APTA called Choose PT. And at Choose PT, what we do is we do a lot of public relations, commercials. We put some stuff out every year. But this website is a consumer site where, like, if your friend's niece sprained her ankle and they were like, man, I got to find somebody, you can go there, you can look up, right? And if you're a PT, you can list your profile, right? You can put it in there. So if somebody's trying to find somebody, they find you, right? And so the APTA is trying to put the professions in the communities where you live so that you're there for them to find, right? And I think that's really important, because if you're not part of the fabric of your community, right, you're never going to be able to serve that. But as soon as they kind of know who you are, then the problem is turning it off, right? Because then everybody's calling you all the time. And look, that's a problem that we should all be happy to have.
Yes, I love that so much. And as you know, like social media is huge right now. So like a lot of people, a lot of professions, they go away from like doing what's always worked in the past. But I love what APTA is doing as far as like getting on social media, getting on the wave, doing podcasts, getting out there and putting ourselves out there, because that's a huge thing as well.
And I think it's important too, because that's how people consume things now, right? Like, look, I'm a little older than you, right? Like,
just a couple years.
There was once a thing called a phone book, right? If you needed something, you picked up this giant book and you're like looking for something, right? Nobody's gonna do that, right? But if I'm just scrolling, I'm like, man, I put in there, knee sprain treatment. Couple of things come up. I look at a couple of videos. Oh, who are these people? Oh, that's who I need. This is who's gonna help me. And again, if you're not in the community, if you're not in their world, they don't know who you are. So this is kind of that, like you said, APTA is realizing that, like, it's more about being available to the community and the people you serve, and how can they connect with you.
Yes, and meeting them where they are. I always tell people too, like marketing my clinics, like, how do you market? I'm like, it's simple. All I do is meet the conversation that's happening in our Odell client's head. So what we need to do in society is meet that conversation that's happening in their head about health, and then telling them what we can do.
And it's different for everybody, right? Like for some people, it's their kids, and they need to know, at my kid's school, how does my kid access the care that they need, right? Or it's hey, my elderly dad fell over and hurt his hip, but like he's got to get some, so it's being in all those places and understanding that we have a role to help them, to just the patients and the communities that you're in. Like you said, you got to be there though. You got to be there.
Yes, I love that so much. Switching gears just a little bit. So a lot of my followers, a lot of people who I talk to are a lot of students, new grads. So like some people, they're just looking for mentorship. They're looking for what the next steps are. So what are your biggest advice for physical therapy students or new grads?
Yeah, I think there's two things I would tell you. Right, so I've had a long PT career, and one of the best bits of advice I got along the way was just be really good at whatever it is you do. And when you're young, you have the time to become an expert in whatever your thing is, whatever that is. Because as life gets further along, you get more obligations, or you get a promotion and now you got to do other stuff, right? You get married, or you get like other jobs, things, life just gets more and more complicated. So when you have that window where you can really focus on you as a professional, take advantage of it. Do the course that you want, get the board certification, spend the time just going down the rabbit holes, right? Because it's more difficult later on in your career, right? And the other thing I would say is that nobody becomes a PT because you're like, man, you know what's going to be awesome? I'm going to have my own jet, and I'm going to have, right, like a couple of Bugattis. Like, no, that's not who we are, right? People are drawn to PT because they want to help people, they want to be engaged, and usually you're a decent person. With that in mind, understand that, like, I've never asked somebody for a minute of their time or a bit of advice and they not be available. Right? So this profession, because of who's in it, just ask somebody, right? Buy them a cup of coffee, sit down for 5 minutes, and they will absolutely connect and give you all the information you want. But you can't be afraid to do it, right? You got to just put yourself out there. And sometimes that's intimidating, right? Like, and it's hard. But I'm telling you, like, the profession is just filled with good people. So they will absolutely connect with you. But you got to ask. You got to ask.
I love that so much. Like, I talk to a lot of people about mentorship. Like, the fastest way to get there is mentorship. Like, why would I go through all of this, learning the same scars, when I could just pay for the lesson, the cup of coffee, go ask someone, pay for the lesson, and you don't have to get the scars. Like, find someone that you really look up to and emulate what they've done for their success. Guess what? You can do the same thing instead of trying to guess your way through it.
You got it, right? And then the bigger thing is, I always tell people is like, and then one day, right, you're going to be in my shoes. And when somebody asks you, you say yes. What do you need? How can I help? What are the questions you have, right? And that just kind of that whole mentorship thing really goes, and it goes both ways too, right? Because it helps me understand where people are at. It helps me understand, well, what are people's, the struggles that new grads have now are not the same that I had, right? School's expensive, right? Jobs are complicated sometimes. You're not quite sure, like, what am I supposed to be doing? Or like, how do I fit into this? And it's good for me to understand what their struggles are so that if I have any opportunity at APTA to help with those struggles, I need to do that. And the only way I learn that is by talking to people.
I love that. So going off of that, that's a really good thing. So it's taboo, but it's a thing that everyone knows. Like, reimbursement is decreasing, tuition is increasing. So like, what are you guys doing at the APTA to like combat that, or like some efforts that you're doing to help with that?
So the first thing I would say is let's talk about tuition, because it's a thing, right? And I'm very happy to speak about it. One thing that APTA did is when you are putting in your application to PTCAS, you can see what does this program cost. It is completely transparent, and that's a requirement now, right? But it doesn't make you not susceptible to making poor choices, right? And this is what I tell people all the time, right? I told my son, like, you're gonna get a car, man. That's a nice Corvette, but that Camry is probably what you should be buying, right? You've got to make the monthly payments on that thing, right? And I'm not saying that more expensive schools are different or worse. What I'm saying is you have to understand what you're getting yourself into financially and understand that that's going to be a part of your professional path. And if you're okay with that, wonderful, wonderful. But if you're not, you need to figure that out before you take that on. So I think being transparent is important. I think number two, I think that setting up a career path, right, that will get you to where you want to be financially takes effort. It is not coming to you. Like nobody, like you're not going to graduate and somebody's like, oh, you graduated. Here's 200 G's. Here's a company car. Thanks for showing up. That is not how this works. But you can absolutely put yourself on a pathway to, let me get my student loans paid off. Let me make sure I have enough money for rent. And then let me start pushing towards a pathway towards success. But it takes effort. And this concept that a lot of people have that I graduated and now I've arrived. So I graduated and I'm in. I'm in. Like,
whole nother world.
Right. And what I tell people is like, you're just starting. You just showed up on your professional pathway. And just like a player in a league, right? Like your league minimum, you just showed up. You just got here, right? No. Yes, maybe the contract's coming. Maybe the big things are coming for you, but you just showed up. And so people have to understand that of a 30-year professional career plus, you just started, right? And put in the time and energy. So I think that people understand how much debt did I get into? What is my plan for dealing with it, right? And understand that it's going to come along the way. So I think that's the big question right there. Let me jump into the other question you asked about, what are we doing about reimbursement? So look, reimbursement is a problem in so much as some of the codes that we use, the reimbursement on them is going down, right? And so if you're in a clinic, right, and you're billing for 97110 Therex, neuromuscular re-ed, you're kind of doing these codes, yes, it's going down. But the interesting thing is, let's say it's getting cut by 4%, 7%. Well, the code was $37. All right, we're cutting it down by 8%. How much are you losing? I'm not an athlete, so I don't know.
Neither,
right? I don't know.
A couple dollars?
It's a couple of dollars, right? And I get that over the big picture, that's not good. But what is interesting is, you know what codes are going up? Evaluation codes. You're getting reimbursed more for evaluation codes. So when I think about it like this, if you're a doctoring profession, you should be doing the doctoring. You should be doing the evaluations. You should be doing reevaluations, right? I should be doing discharge summaries of like, this person's ready for this, or this person needs this other specialty. I'm done as much as I can, but they need to see the orthopedist or the neurosurgeon. If you are staying in that level in your practice, your reimbursement's really good. When we trickle into doctors doing technical work,
that makes sense.
The reimbursement starts going down, right? But this would be my question for anybody who's listening to this. If you ever go to the dentist, is your doctor so-and-so your dentist, the one flossing your teeth, putting on your fluoride? Like, no, they have assistants helping them, right? And that's their role. And leveraging them is how their practice is successful. If you go get your eyes, you go to the eye doctor, right? Is the eye doctor the one doing every single thing along the way? No, they have a team, right? And they lead the team and they're doing the doctoring. So I think that our profession has to understand that, like, if we're leading a team, the reimbursement makes sense on some degrees. Now, look, it can always be better. And I'm not going to tell you that, like, oh, that's going to fix everything. But that's a part of it. And the other part of it is physical therapy is a small slice of the entire healthcare system, right? I like to say that we're like a small but mighty profession, right? Because anybody who's interacted with physical therapy loves it. Like, everybody's like, oh, I love my physical therapist. Oh, I had a great experience. But we are not the majority of the healthcare cost, right? So it hurts us when things are cut because we don't have the scale that like physicians have, right? But I will say that APTA, for the size of the profession, does a really good job of lobbying for these things, right?
That's awesome.
So like getting changes, fighting it, and understanding that the only way you can do that is by people getting together.
Yeah.
Like when APTA is like, hey, look, we put this thing out. Can you click this and send an email to your congressman, right? Listen, if I know anything, is when elected officials get 10, 20, 30,000 emails, they're paying attention,
Yeah.
right? Because the people that are voting for them are saying, hey, we want this. The only way the profession will get those changes is by people being engaged. You've got to be part of it, right? You got to be part of the solution. So I think that APTA kind of leads those efforts, but APTA is not the one click and send, right? We're not the ones that are, bumping into your county officials, right? Or the people having those conversations or showing up in Congress and being like, hey man, you got to fix this.
Yeah.
So APTA can kind of put that structure in, but the people in the profession need to do the action.
I'm so glad we're having this, because I didn't even think about what you said about all the other professions. Like, we need to be doing the doctorate thing of the evaluations, re-evaluations, but it's when you start to get into doing all the other things where you can hire assistants and things like that to do. Of course, they're not going to reimburse high for you not doing that. Physicians aren't doing everything.
Correct.
Dentists aren't doing everything.
No.
That is a really good perspective.
Yeah.
So what do you think about like the education around that? Because I feel like that starts in school too, because we're not taught in school that's like,
and so here's the thing, right? School teaches you enough to be dangerous, right? And I was there, right?
Not to harm someone.
Right, yeah. Like you show up and it teaches you like, here's what you need to know. But it doesn't teach you how to be at the top of the pyramid for how to practice, right? You get that through mentorship.
Yes.
You get that through interacting with people and looking at models and going, what does it look like to be just a complete awesome PT, right?
Yeah.
How do I do that? You got to talk to people, right?
Yeah.
Because look, in any profession, it's super easy to be mediocre, right? You can show up, you can punch the clock, you can and look, there's a lot of people listening to this, like, yep, you can go through the motions and then you can be like, oh, I got 12 notes. I'm not going to do them at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then the next day, now I got 24 notes. And you're like, well, I hate my job. I hate my life. Like, you can go through that. Or you can choose that, like, I want to do more. I want to be more. But like you said, you got to find people to show you that, right? And APTA, so like this meeting is a great example where you can go up, talk to people. How do you do that? Like we just had a session where some young PTs who have set up their practice and people want to emulate it.
Yeah.
Talk to them. We'll put them out there. You can talk to them. You can say like, how did you do that? I want to be like that. It's all there for you.
Yeah.
And you come and you network with your community. You get kind of like-minded people together, and that's how you figure it out.
So shifting gears a little bit. So I'm an entrepreneur myself. I started practice right out of school as a new grad. So a lot of professors, a lot of people will say, don't do that. Go get 3 to 5 years of experience. What do you think about that?
I think that there are two things about that. Number one, like I said earlier, you graduating are not the same as when I graduated. You have amazing access to tools and information that I never had, right? And that makes you a different type of new clinician, right? All that information is available for you so that you can make a decision as opposed to, it's going to take me a couple of years before I can accumulate the knowledge to know should I do this.
Yeah.
So I think, number one, that makes you different. And also the entrance, the competitiveness of getting into PT school already tells me you're pretty good, right? Like you've already done the work, right? You've already proven that I'm good enough to do this, right? And the other thing I would say to that is physical therapy tends to have somewhat of an inferiority complex. So I struggle with this because we're the one profession, right, that can do so many things with no drugs, no procedures. I don't got to cut you open and I can change your life. Why do we feel that is not worthy of me owning it and standing it up? And I understand the get really good at it, right? So the one caveat I have to that is saying, like, again, you got a young window for a short period of time. And if you want to do something that requires an advanced skill set, you should probably pursue that Because as soon as as soon as you start a business, that's your baby now, right? You got to feed that thing all the time. You're taking patients, evenings, weekends, right? You're hustling. And if that's what drives you, that's awesome, because go do it, right? But if you want to do some very nuanced things, right? Like if that was like, I want to do lymphatics with post-op cancer patients, you should figure that out before you start your business, right? But if you've got the knowledge, go after the business. But understand, as like I think people need to know, like business is a hustle, right? This isn't like, oh, I'm gonna start my business, I'm just gonna make a bunch of money, make all this money, I'm gonna be rich. Like, man, you're gonna be hustling, right? But if you do the hustle, it pays off.
Yes,
right? It pays off.
Just like anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that so much. And I love that you mentioned, like, for some reason, physical therapists, we have like an inferiority complex around like even calling ourselves doctors.
Yes.
So I speak to a lot of PT schools, and one of my things, I'm like, join the fight, call yourself doctor when you graduate, because like they think that calling themselves doctor is gonna like hurt other professions. It's like, hey, I don't care about not stepping on your toes. Like, I'm just telling you what I did. I earned my doctorate degree, so I'm gonna call it. So what do you guys think about that?
I think that this is how I always introduce myself. Hey, nice to meet you. I'm Dr. Drew Contreras. I'll be your physical therapist. Yes. Every single patient, every single time, right? Not, I'm Dr. Contreras, your physician. No, I'm not a physician. If I wanted to be a physician, I'd gone to medical school. That's not what I wanted to do, right? I am this. This is what I am. And it's the same, like, your dentist doesn't like, oh, I don't like to call myself a doctor, right? No, absolutely not, right? So this, like you said, this trouble understanding that like you're a doctoring profession, right? And to the point of, look, if I'm evaluating you because, you can't walk, you're dragging your leg and you're peeing on your drop foot, like I'm a doctor working on you, right? This is not just some random dude who went to a couple of years of college, right? I know what I am, and the profession needs to be held to that standard, right? So that whether it's you and your community or me and mine, when they interact with a doctor of physical therapy, they know what that is. I know what this profession does. Nobody questions, what does the optometrist do? What does the dentist do? Everybody understands that, right? What does the physical therapist do? I help you move, and I help you be able to do the things you want to do. That's what I do for a living.
I love that so much. I love that so much hearing that from you too. That's really cool. I think this is like very valuable for people to know. So for myself, when I was in school, I didn't really understand what like APTA was. What does the APTA do? Why do I need to be a member? I was forced to be a member as a student, which some of you guys are aware of. But when you're forced to do something and not telling you why, because I need to complete something on a website for a project, but then hearing you explain, like, if we actually want to move things going forward with the reimbursement, we need more people on the APTA team. And then it's you guys who start the initiative, but then everyone has to sign the papers. So it's not like you can just walk in on Capitol Hill and say, I want these changes. It's like you have to have people behind you. So that's interesting.
I think the biggest thing, right, that APTA people need to understand is like APTA is a framework for the things that the profession wants done, right? And there's a group of seasoned clinicians that steer the profession and our board of directors, right? And when they say, for example, you know what, we really need to focus on this thing, then the profession moves towards it. And then the staff, the team at APTA, and this is the other thing people don't understand, there's 140 people there. It's not like there's 5,000. Like it's 100 and some people, right? So if the profession wants something, the staff will put the framework together, but the profession needs to push it forward, right? It can't be, oh, well, Drew's gonna make sure that this legislation Drew doesn't have any say in it, right? But if we talk to the people in North Carolina and there's a problem and 5,000 physical therapists from North Carolina show up, they're gonna listen to you, right? But it's the association's job is to just put the members in a position to do what they want, right? And this kind of like this meeting here, he was like, well, what is this meeting? What is it about? This meeting is really about two things. Number one, there's some smart people sharing their smart stuff, right? And if you need to know the latest thing about this thing or that thing, you can come here and figure that out. You can get that mentoring that you need. The other thing is, most of these things are just about you finding your people, right? So like if you, like a great example is we have a big gym set up right now, right? We got a lot of people doing some deadlifts, throwing some weights around, right? And people start connecting because that's their interest.
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh, well, these people want to figure out, how do we make sure that we get older people still lifting weights, right? Because my grandma still needs to be able to pick up the gallon of milk, right? Grandpa still got to be able to pick up the grandbaby and put the star on the tree, right? Like all these things. And now they have an opportunity to connect. This is what it's about. It's just about people finding their people and doing the things that they're passionate about. That's it.
I love that. This is great. Just a couple more questions.
Yeah.
So switching gears just a little bit. So everyone knows this, like burnout rates are like higher than ever in the PT profession and causing some people to like leave the profession as a whole.
Yes.
So like what are some things that like tips that you can give like young new grads on how to avoid that? And also what is APTA doing as far as like combating that issue?
Yeah, I think, all right, so the first thing I will say is if you are a young professional, right, you need to understand two things. You need to understand that as a pro, this is not a punch the clock job. You're a pro, right? And like if you're a pro in anything, it's not a punch the clock, do the thing and then leave, right? You're a pro. You're always on. But as a pro, you also need to be smart about putting a fence around those things that are important to you, right? And if that's your annual guys golf trip, or if that's your girls beach trip, right? You put a fence around that and you protect it because somebody's going to try and take it away from you. Everything in work is trying to take that away from you. You've got to be put a fence around it and say, this is mine and nobody's going to touch it. We sometimes forget that. And then we're like, and then, you know, you get 18 months, 24 months, you haven't connected with your friends. And next thing you know, you're upset. You have to take care of yourself, right? So I'm an ex-military guy, right? And the saying was always like, you got to put your own gas mask on first. You are of no help to anybody if you don't do that, right? So make sure you take care of yourself first. And I think that, again, as a group of people who want to serve and help other people, we forget that. So then it quickly leads to burnout. So the other thing I think is that, you know, the profession is changing rapidly right now. So a lot of things, like here's a great example, documentation, right? Like you're busy slinging patients all day, right? I'm doing the stuff on the table. I'm teaching them the lifts. Like it's very easy to get behind in your documentation, right? But you have to do it. It's part of it because if you don't document it, it didn't happen. Leveraging things, leveraging AI, leveraging technology that can help you get your note down, get your billing done. All those things are how the profession is going to move away from this arduous process of having to do all these things. Now, one of the things APTA does, here's a great example. So some insurance companies require pre-authorization, right? So this is what that, so if you guys don't know this, so you're gonna see this patient, right? And they got a hurt shoulder. The insurance company says, oh, all right, well, before that patient can come see you, you have to request us and we will give them a couple of visits, right? Well, this is what I struggle with is like, you're paying for the insurance. I pay you every month for my insurance. Now I got to ask you permission to use it? Like, I don't ask my car insurance.
Medical decisions?
Yeah, like, I don't ask the car insurance, like, hey, if I wreck this car, are you going to cover it? No, that's the insurance. So anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. But these administrative burdens are inserted onto clinicians and practices. So one of the things APTA has done is like, for example, in some insurance carriers, we've gone and said, this needs to go away. We get 10, 15, 20,000 physical therapists writing about it. And next thing you know, the insurance carrier drops it. So now I don't need that pre-authorization. Now somebody can come see me direct access and they're going to get their visit covered because they have insurance. And we didn't have to do that thing that would have taken you 20 minutes, 30 minutes. While it's not a big deal, if it's 20, 30 minutes for 30 patients a week, right? That's a whole bunch of time that I'm not able to see patients or hustle, right? So taking away those administrative burdens and making it easy for you to just see your patients, that's some of the stuff APTA does.
I love that so much. Last question. So how do you feel about cash pay practice, physical therapy?
All right, I'm going to say a thing here that like is going to be controversial, and I'm all right with that, right? So I have no issues with cash-based services. My issue with cash-based services is, what are you charging and what are you worth, right? And so when I go and see a patient and I do some cash-based care, people want to know, but what does this cost? And the number one question I get from people, which I'm sure people listen to this go, what do I charge? Here's my question. When my wife goes to see her hair colorist and she gets a cut, color, and blowout, what does that cost? It ain't cheap, right? Or if you're going with your buddies, I'm gonna hit 18 rounds, we're gonna have a sandwich at the turn, maybe I have a beer after. What do you pay for that, right? What does that cost in your area and in your community? My name starts with doctor, right? And if you want to see me, this is the level of things that we're talking, because people understand, well, if I'm seeing you, why does it cost that, right? And when I say, how much you color get your hair that blonde, right? This is a conversation that people start to understand. So it's not to be flippant, but it's to say, if you're doing it, you must understand your value. What is the value that I bring to it? But also understand, when you do it, people expect you to deliver. They expect, if I'm paying you for a service and I'm paying you, I expect results, right? And then you have to be held accountable, or nobody's ever going to come see you again, right? But if you hold up your end of the value, you know, if I spend 2-3 visits and I'm able to fix your back or your shoulder and you're good, they're happier with that than I went to 10 visits to this other guy who wasn't as helpful. And sometimes if you work in that cash practice, you take away some of those other barriers and I can just focus on that, right? Right? And here's the other thing, right? People will put their money towards things that help them live a better life, right? Because at some point in your life, that's really all that matters, right? And if you show them that, like, I'm valuable, I'm helping you do the things you want to do, live the life you want to live, then that's a reasonable value proposition.
I love that. So I'm a premium cash-based service myself, and I always tell people and tell my team, like, people pay us for the value, not for our time. It's not my time, it's the value that I can bring you. We went to school for 7-8 years to be able to fix your shoulder pain within a couple of visits, but it's 8 years. You pay me for the value, not the time that it costs. But when you allow your patients and teach them, or like know how to sell them or persuade them of the value that you're gonna bring, they'll pay you whatever to get rid of their shoulder pain that they've had for 2 years.
And look, I've spent a big hunk of my time working with significant executives, people with big time constraints, right? And at some point you realize that, just like you said, people see me because they only need to see me for 20 minutes, twice, maybe 3 times, and we're good. They're not interested in giving time, because time is their most valuable resource, right? And so they're paying you, like you said, I'm paying you because it only takes 20 minutes, not for an hour and a half, right? I am not giving you a relaxing massage for an hour and a half. That is not what I'm doing, right? I'm here to address your concern and fix it as quickly as I can so that you can go back to doing the things that you want to do. And when you do that, some people get worried because they're like, well, then if you fix them twice, then how are you you're not gonna make any money. Well, your patients are leaving. Listen, I have never had that problem, because the better you are, the more people that will just keep showing up, right? And that's what it is. It's about knowing your value, knowing what you deliver, giving that to the patients, giving them their time, and then you being able to know that, like, if you're good, it's just going to keep coming. It's just going to keep coming, right? Everybody worries, like, oh, no, I don't know if I'm going to have enough patients. Don't worry about that. Worry about, are you good? And if you focus on that, if you're good, they're going to show up. They're going to find you. That's all it takes.
You are the man. I really, really enjoy this. I appreciate you, like, hopping on the podcast and allowing me to ask tough questions that so many people are scared to front, which you've like hit straight on. So
and
I love
listen,
that.
You know, people have, they think whatever they want to think about the APTA, and that's fine, right? And listen, I was a critique of APTA for many years, and then one day somebody said to me, "Hey, man, instead of being critical, how about you do something?" Right? And I was like, well, I don't know. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to try, right? So you kind of show up and you realize that all I'm doing is helping my fellow people who love the profession try to figure out how to do it, how to do it better, how to be a part of it, right? And look, nothing's perfect. APTA is not a perfect organization, But at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of good, decent people trying to do good things. And I think if people get engaged with it, you start to realize that you find your people, and then it's just people doing what they want to do, right?
Yes.
And that's what it's about.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for the time.
Of
Pleasure.
Course, of
yeah,
course.
absolutely.